Hello, everyone. This is Centered.Live, and welcome. Real conversations about what grounds us, lifts us, and helps us live with purpose, clarity, and compassion. Your hosts are Randy Burgoyne and Paul Malloy. Today, our topic is going to be on the power of yet.
So yeah, have you ever just caught yourself saying, I just can't do that? And it's kind of as if it's final and you've given up. You're just saying, I can't do that. I'm giving up. Could be in work, it could be in a project that you're working on, repairs around the house.
That's so true.
Well, we're gonna address one little additional word. Instead of saying, I can't do that, add the word yet. I can't do that yet. And I know there's a lot of things that have been incorporated in various educational systems, and a lot of what we're going to talk about today is from a book from Dr. Carol Dweck,
Right.
The Mindset, the New Psychology of Success. And I watched her recent TED Talk that was just fabulous about the power of yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of that being used in classrooms, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Both as a teacher, her concept of positive mindset is something that we strive all the time. I mean, every moment of every day to incorporate into our classroom environments. And then in addition to that, I know that in my wife's classroom, where she teaches math at the high school level, that she has up the front a sign that actually says the power of yet.
Mm,
And then attached to that, it says, I don't know. It doesn't make sense. I can't do this. It doesn't work.
mm.
I don't get it. And these are common things that she hears, her students say. But then when you add that word yet, it transforms everything. And so it's such a powerful message.
Mindset is kind of an interesting term. When I was a teenager, um, I started working for my dad in the computer store, right? And we got fairly large. We were getting up to 35, 40 employees. And he
Yep, I was
decided,
there. I was
yeah,
one
you
of
were there. That's right.
them.
And I can't remember if you were among. Did you go to the Franklin Covey? Not the Franklin. It wasn't called Franklin Covey then. Just the Franklin Planner training.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I remember we went to the Franklin Planner training. We got all that information. Well, my dad didn't stop there. He took us to Zig Ziglar and
Mm,
Pat Robertson and
mhm.
Earl Nightingale.
Yes,
All these big name positive mental attitudes,
right.
and it's all about mindset. Sure, the Franklin Planner was great for planning your life, and that's a big part of having a mindset. And sometimes we forget about that type of thing.
So true. And it doesn't take a lot to kind of knock us off or, make us suddenly feel a little bit wobbly. And and that positive mindset has to be cultivated. We really need to work at it so that even when, we take a jab, a hit, we're feeling, on less than firm foundation, that the positive mindset immediately kicks into hyper gear, and helps restabilize everything. Because without that, it can often be a downward spiral.
Hmm. Yeah. So, have you experienced some specific story about using the power of yet in your
Oh,
education or business? What?
if you don't mind, I'll share from my own childhood. When I was 11 years old, right in around that time frame, my dad wanted us to learn how to build and maintain bicycles, and he literally bought a bicycle shop that was closing in the Phoenix area and brought all of the parts into our backyard. and arranged them so that we could build our own bikes. And we did. But, at 11 years old, I was scrawny to begin with, but, it was something that he wanted us to learn by trying, and obviously trial and error, right? And at some point, I started to get so frustrated that I would say, "I quit." I would just yell, "I quit." You know, uh,
Mm.
Anytime anything got the least bit hard, that's what I would say. I quit. Schoolwork, any activity that we were doing, any new skill that I was trying to learn, right? And so my parents, being very concerned about this, for my 12th birthday, they gave me this book, um, Winners Never Quit. And this is all about sports figures who had become champions in a variety of different athletic uh, venues. And so in here is Jim Ryan, who was the first person to break the 4 minute mile. Jackie Robinson, Johnny Unitas, who was my all-time favorite quarterback growing up as a kid,
Mm.
Mickey Mantle, Sandy Koufax, Rocky Marciano, and on and on. There's a number of them. And what it did is it illustrated how they overcame tremendous odds by not giving up. It may sound a little bit weird, but this book, and this is the original book, and the pages now are so yellow and brittle that I almost hardly don't even pull it out of my library. But this book changed my life,
Mm.
and it allowed me that, plus a book by James Allen called "As a Man Thinketh."
Mm.
Two books together changed how I operated through the rest of my schooling, particularly junior high and high school, and gave me the foundation um, to really create within myself the idea that I could be a champion. So, it's overcome the hard things, because you know that if you keep going, you keep practicing, you keep doing, eventually you will.
Yeah. Well, that's a great story, and I think that applies to a lot of things that I've done in my life growing up, and I really appreciated the as I look back, I really appreciated the positive mental attitude. So I wasn't afraid to go buy a self-help book or
Mhm.
read a manual or delve into a subject to figure it out. That talent, that ability is really critical, and sometimes we get in a self-deprecating mode, like,
Mhm.
oh man, everything's going bad. I got bills to pay, my work's not going well, my car's got trouble, been in the shop for a month, all these kind of things, and yet we're resilient people.
Yes.
We have to take the time to look at ourselves and saying, yeah, we're in a challenging time, but we can get out of it.
Right. Right. I have a great friend, that, in fact, earlier today, I was talking with him, and, he checking in on me, I'm checking up on him. He was hired by an airline as a pilot, and then the airline suddenly, went into bankruptcy, and they laid off almost all of their pilots, and he was one of the ones. He wasn't senior enough to survive that, and so suddenly, yeah, he's out of a job. And today he told me that they had to sell their home,
Wow.
and pretty brutal. But one of the things that I dearly respect and love about this friend is that um, he he told me, it's there. He's struggling, in a lot of ways, and yet he refuses to give up. He refuses to be knocked out and down for the count. He is going to continue to do everything that he can to create the revenue streams that he needs to in order to support his family. And that kind of thing, we think sometimes, that you get to a certain level and there will be no more trouble. And it doesn't take much, right, Randy?
Yeah.
I mean, something hits you and your health goes south.
Yep.
Something causes, you know, your life to destabilize, and it can happen in an instant.
Yep. Yeah, and as I think about, some of the things that we have talked about in our 3 podcasts so far, is we have a centered view, what's rooted and grounded. And I think about a spiritual mindset, a spiritual
Mhm,
growth.
mhm.
A lot of that applies to the same thing, as saying, okay, how am I stuck spiritually? What do I need to get out of it? Do I need to spend more time in devotion and prayer and meditation
Right.
and study? I mean, those are kind of the basics. And then participating with others. I think that um, helping others in their growth mindset, in their spiritual growth, really magnifies what we can do for ourselves.
It is such, I don't know if I would say irony, because I don't think that actually applies in this case. But when you think about how, when we're self-focused and we see everything that essentially seems to be going wrong, again, that downward spiral, right? But if we can come out of that inward focus and start looking outward, and we start helping others, invariably we find that our hearts are uplifted, our countenances are gladdened, um, and things don't look so bleak anymore. And
Mhm.
along with that, Randy, it makes me wonder if, how much would change if we could be really effective in sharing that mindset with our children, our teams, our inner circle of friends, right?
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, exactly. And I think that one additional point I wanted to make was that sometimes we want to compare sides to an issue.
mhm.
We want to say, okay, well, let's look at you know, the the grounded traditional viewpoint. Why should we think outside the box?
Hmm.
That's that's not going to get you anywhere. You need a stable job. You need to, work hard, get your college degree, and boom, boom, boom. That's the traditional thing. And then, the middle ground is saying, well, it depends on the career I want. And then the out of the box is the artist that, all of a sudden moves to California to look for a job. It's, there are people that do that and enjoy it
Mhm,
and
mhm.
succeed. And there's a lot that don't, that fail. But in failure, don't we grow? And
Mhm. Absolutely. If we are in that positive mindset, that growth mindset, then, you know, failure is just a way to analyze, a new strategy, right? A different way to do something.
mhm,
It's like, you, if somebody, I'm applying for a job and that job says, no, you're not the right candidate for us. I would say, thank you. That helps me to know that there's another opportunity somewhere, right? Instead of saying, ooh, that's going to be devastating. That's going to destroy everything that I'm trying to accomplish. And it shouldn't. Whether the mistake is little or fairly significant, if we learn from what went wrong, then in truth, there is no failure.
mhm,
Failure in some ways is just when you quit,
right.
and winners never quit.
That's right. As long as you get up, you're
Yes,
still a winner. So,
yes.
so and as you're talking there, I'm thinking, I wish I would have known this, 35 years ago when my kids were young, and be able
Mhm,
to teach them that it's okay to fail. And I guess in a little sense I did, when they came home and they didn't have the A's and B's, that's okay. Let's just I never got mad. I tried to say, okay, well, what's the solution? Let's work on it. But I didn't have that sense of what did you learn from this failure? And that's something I'd do again. Now, I'm not saying I want to go back to age 30
Yeah.
and do it all over again, right?
Yeah, we worked too hard to get where we are right now, Randy.
That's right. Good thing my kids figured it out on their own. They're pretty smart.
Well, and there again, again, in my wife's classroom, she has a big banner, and it says, "In this class, mistakes are expected, inspected, corrected, and respected."
Ooh, I like that.
Right?
Yeah,
Powerful stuff.
yeah, yep. Well, we've talked about so much about a, a growth mindset. We've explored a lot of things, and whether you're a college student in school or in work, but it's more than just our outward. It's how we believe, how we love and accept ourselves, and yet the power of yet gives us enough room to breathe inside of that, saying, I'm not the spiritual advanced person that I think I should be yet.
Mhm.
And sometimes we call that humility, and I think humility kind of has a hard connotation to it. When people think if you humble, somebody that's humble, they think of downtrodden and homeless or whatever, but that's not necessarily the case. Humility is the ability to look at yourself and say, yeah, I'm not perfect, but I'm working on it. I'm not there
Mhm.
yet.
Mhm. And just that one word changes everything, and makes such an incredible difference. Uh, Definitely, again, with our children, with my students, with my wife's students, trying to help them to gain resilience in their life. And every youth, every child, of course, has had difficult things in their lives already, whether it's been an illness, an injury, a setback with a parental um, situation, um, or maybe it's extended family, whatever it is. Maybe it's challenges at school. And it's so easy to want to give up. But I think with the idea that we can see ourselves how, or at least the potential that we have, that greater potential, then um, I think that it helps us to see that we still have value, we still have worth, we still have the ability to move forward. We may need help. We may absolutely need professional help. And sometimes I think that, especially, when our parents were growing up, and then when you and I were kids, getting professional help was like a sign of failure, and it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's not. If anything, I mean, if we're looking at a car mechanic to help us solve a problem with a car, if we're looking for a plumber to help us solve a problem with our house, or an electrician, right? Why in the world would we not think of somebody that can help us to overcome some of the challenges that we are handling emotionally and psychologically? Um, there is no shame in that. There is, in fact, if anything, that choice and that process should be celebrated, and and then it allows us again to firm up that foundation that we're on, and to be able to see the potential that we can yet achieve.
Yeah, exactly. Well, as we wrap up today, if there's something that's resonated with you, maybe a memory, a challenge. Hopefully, we've given you kind of a fresh sense of hope, right? Share this with somebody who needs to hear it. So don't forget to like and subscribe and add comments. And what we'd like to hear is where in life could you use the word yet? That's the thing we'd like to hear is how can you use the word yet in your life? So any last thoughts, any last comments?
You know, in the Air Force, we used to say as we'd go out to the flight line, you know, that we're going to kick the tires, light the fires, and hit the go button. And it's all metaphorical. You don't really kick the tires, and you do press a button, but it's not labeled go. But the point is that sometimes you just have to commit to doing something and move forward.
Yep, great. Well, thank you all for participating with us, and I'm going to try to get a link to Dr. Carol Dweck's book and put it in the comments here so that you can go to it and just love have you share and like and subscribe to our channel. So thank you all and have a great evening.